The Fallen Alicorn Amulet. Chapter 2. A Special Occasion. The day passed quickly. Nefaria had spent most of it with her teacher, Miss Nightingale, studying magic. It was her favorite subject. She found great difficulty in paying attention to any other class, but she truly loathed one in particular, music. Nefaria had been the most beautiful singing voice in all of Equestria, her teacher told her, but there was one problem: effort. Almost every time she went to that class, she refused to sing, or came up with some excuse to get out of it. She couldn't help feel like the teacher was singling her out from every pony else. Nefaria levitated the dress over from her bed. She had it ordered, specifically made from a tailor. It was hoof-stitched and had rubies magically crafted onto it. It was made of a black silk that began at the base of her neck and then covered the rest of her body, all except her head. Around the waist was a belt of rubies and sapphires. White glitter covered her hooves and joints, making them more noticeable, and somehow made them look smoother. Traveling down her back, tracing her spine, was a long line of diamonds that shimmered and created little dots of light on the ceiling above. The braces on her back were made up of the same material as her horn, and she had painted over the rustic color, making them black for the special occasion. Around her neck lay the necklace she had bought the previous day. It had been polished and made smooth by the jewelers. Nefaria also took time at the end of the day to brighten the highlights she had in her hair. She had put streaks of red in her pitch-black mane when she was 12. At age 14, she had golden-colored highlights put in her tail. After she had gotten into her dress and readjusted the amulet around her neck, she left her room and strolled towards the great hall, where the dinner would be served. When she came to the large wooden entrance to the great hall, she realized that her brother was waiting for her. He was dressed in a white tuxedo with a simple bow tied around his neck. His wings were folded against his sides, and his normally disheveled hair was combed to the side in a neat fashion. When she arrived at his side, he smiled. "At first I thought you weren't coming. Ready?" he asked. "Ready as I'll ever be," she said, before she turned to the large double doors. Emperion's horn glowed with a white aura, and both the doors swung open, revealing a long wooden table. At the end of it was the monarch of the day, Celestia. She beamed at both her adopted children. "I'm so glad you two could come," she said, extending her right foreleg towards the two empty cushions that sat to the right of her. Both Nefaria and Empyrean smiled back before advancing and taking their seats next to the princess. Shortly after, several trumpets blared, announcing that the visitors had come down from their quarters and were about to enter the great hall. The doors were pushed open by the two royal guards that were positioned outside them. Their guests stepped forward. There was a male and a female, both earth ponies. Each had a lighter gray coat striped with lines of black. The king and queen of the foreign country stepped forward, and when they reached their seats, both zebras sat down elegantly. From there they had their meals, and talked merrily about their countries and learned much about each other's culture. All through their eating and dancers and entertainers from the foreign country performed for them. The talented zebras conducted magnificent tricks and stupendous acts, doing flips in the air and spins at outrageous speeds. About halfway through their meal, the alicorns and zebras were joined by the king and queen's daughter and son. They all laughed and joked happily, thoroughly enjoying themselves. When each pony had their fill, they all went for a tour around Canterlot and its castle. During the tour, Nefarious started off a conversation with the foreign diplomat's son, while her brother conversed with the zebra princesses. "And that's enough about me. I would much rather hear about thee," the prince concluded, after telling Nefaria some of his adventures he had in his distant land. "Well, I guess I should start at the beginning. My brother and I were orphaned as babies, and Princess Celestia adopted us. I really like to study and do magic too. I just like the idea of doing what I want and being who I was born to be. That's actually how I got my cutie mark," Nefaria began. On the other carriage, Empyrean was pointing and explaining to the female zebra what all the structures were and what their purpose was. She seemed to be distracted, though. Every once in a while the slate pony would question about his horn and wings. Zakaya, the zebra princess, was fascinated with the idea of magic and flight. She longed for a day when she herself could roam the skies and enchant the world with her magic. It was for this reason that she took a liking to writing poetry, even though all of it was written in rhyme. Empyrean jumped up and hit his head against the inside of the carriage. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," the zebra said, after touching the very sensitive spot at the base of his wings. "No need to worry," Empyrean said, as finishing her rhyme while rubbing the bump on his head. "I was unaware of their sensitivity. Next time I won't touch so rude or harshly," she apologized. "It's fine. You didn't know better," he smiled at her. "Now, where was I?" "That is quite a remarkable story. I wish mine had been so filled with mystery and glory," the zebra prince, known as Zanel, remarked, looking at his own cutie mark. "And I got this done," she said, showing her new feather fashion to the onlooking zebra. He sat in the carriage wide-eyed and mouth agape. "And there were some ponies from Saudi Arabia that sold me this," Nefaria said, turning round, flashing her iron necklace of an alicorn at the still surprised zebra. "They are all wonderful additions, to be sure, but none could outshine the beauty I am before." It took a minute for Nefaria to digest the rhyme and understand it before she realized it was a compliment. She could now feel his hot breath against her neck, and she backed up as the pony-drawn vehicles came to a stop. The door to Empyrean's carriage opened, and he, followed by Zakai, stepped out and walked towards Princess Celestia. As he made his way to her, his sister appeared next to him, and behind them followed the two zebras. The four ponies halted when they now stood before the goddess of the sun. "Well, this has been fun and enlightening. I regret to announce that Zakai and Zanuel must return with their parents to their home," Celestia said. The king and queen of the zebras appeared behind her and began saying their farewells. Empyrean and Nefaria turned to Zakai and Zanuel before embracing them and saying goodbye. As Empyrean held the zebra, he could feel her brush her hoof against his folded wings, and while Nefaria hugged the prince, she could feel his hooves glide across her flank, causing her to shrink away from the touch, driving herself further into the zebra. When the four ponies let go of one another, they all noticed that Empyrean and Nefaria were both sporting bright blushes. The three alicorns waved their hooves, bidding their friends goodbye, as they disappeared into the distance on a zebra-drawn carriage. The end of this chapter. Not really much else to say. See ya. Goodbye.